So what happens during IELTS speaking? IELTS speaking basically is the part of IELTS that is designed to assess your ability to speak in English. What are we doing? We want to know how well you can speak, how well you can pronounce words, how well you can express yourself using the appropriate English words. That's what happens during what? IELTS speaking. So during IELTS speaking, you are going to be interviewed by an examiner. It's either going to be a face-to-face interview session. You'll be seated on a chair, okay? And the examiner will be seated in front of you, and the examiner will be asking you questions. So it's going to be a kind of interview, and it's going to run for about 10 to 15 minutes, okay? And the idea is that they want to know how well you understand what the examiner is asking you. The examiner will ask you a question, you will answer. The examiner asks you another question, you will answer. Get another question, you answer. I mean, it's just a back and forth conversation. Okay? And then they want to know how well you can communicate and respond fluently in English. So you are supposed to speak English throughout your, what's it called? Throughout your interaction, throughout the period of interaction with the examiner. Okay? And then your job is also what? They also want to know how well you can think, how well you can think on the spot and use good quality grammar. Because you're going to get some questions that will probably look new to you. Okay? So you must be able to quickly think of what to say and say it. Those are the things that what IELTS speaking will test. Okay? Now, the test has 3 parts. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. In this class, I'm going to be focusing more on Part 1. Okay? And I would give you guys the opportunity to be interviewed. If you want to practice Part 1 speaking, you can just send a message so that I will take notes. I'll just take 2 or 3 people and then we'll practice together. But before we go into that, let me just explain 1 or 2 things about Part 1. Okay, before I go into Part 1, let me talk about the criteria. How will IELTS speaking be assessed? How will your speaking be assessed? Number 1 criteria that will be used, or number 1 criterion, the singular for criteria is criterion. Number 1 criterion that will be used to assess your speaking is what we call fluency. Fluency, okay? Or we can say fluency and coherence. So what is this all about? Fluency basically means that they want to know, the examiners want to know how well you can express yourself, okay? How well you can develop your response, develop your answers. So for you to get a good score in terms of fluency, you must talk at length, okay? You must talk extensively. Avoid giving one-word answers. Okay, let me show you something. So there's a book that we call the Marker book. That book contains a compilation of different speaking questions. Okay, it contains a compilation of what? Different speaking questions. You are going to see Part 1 speaking questions. You're going to see Part 2 speaking questions, and you will see Part 3 speaking questions. So this is the Marker book here. This is like, I believe this is the latest Marker book here. Inside this book, you're going to see Part 1 questions. Let me show you. Let me just go straight to Part 1 questions. My focus today is Part 1 questions. So all these are Part 1 questions. Let me take you to the beginning. Look at Part 1 questions here. Okay? They want to know your name. The examiner will ask you, may I know your full name? Or what is your name? How may I address you? Or what should I call you? They will ask, the examiner will say, what should I call you? Or what should I address you as? You can just say, okay, you can call me Tayo. You can call me Thomas. You can call me Alexis or Alexa. And then they will ask to see your ID. Okay? Now, so all those questions are they are basic introductory questions. Now, look at this question here. Number 1 here says, what work do you do? So let's assume that you are working somewhere and the examiner asks you, what work do you do? When we say fluency, what we mean is that what? You should speak extensively, talk at length, give an answer that contains 2 or 3 or 4 sentences. So if the examiner asks me and says, what work do you do? So I'll say, oh, well, I work as a teacher. I've been teaching for the past 15 years. I teach English language. So I teach different categories of students. I teach teenagers, students who are in high school, who are preparing for SSCE. I also teach adult students, especially people who want to relocate to English-speaking countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia. I teach them IELTS, I teach them TOEFL, and I would say I enjoy my job. So you see, I talk at length. I did not just say I teach. Some people will just say I teach and then they will stop. No, that's not good fluency. That's going to affect your word. It's going to affect your fluency score. If the examiner says, what work do you do? Let's assume that you are a nurse. Let's use that as an illustration. So somebody says, what work do you do? Well, I work as a nurse. I am a pediatric, so to be more specific, I am a pediatric nurse. That means I primarily take care of children below the age of 2 years. Okay, so newborn children, children who are a few months old, up to the age of 2, those are the ones I specialize in taking care of. And I've been working as a pediatric nurse for the past 6 years. I currently work with XYZ International Hospital. So can you see, I gave detailed answer. I mentioned what I do. I talked about my specification, my specialty, sorry. I talked about my area of specialty, and then I talked about how long I've been working. That's what I mean by what? Fluency, talking at length. You must talk at length. Okay? Let me show you something about the band score, the speaking band score. Look at this table here. This table gives you an idea of this, what will determine whether you get a high score. Okay? Look at the bottom. Let me show you the bottom first. And then I will take you to the top. For somebody to get band 0 in IELTS speaking, look at what it means. Band 0 is not even possible. Band 0 means I did not go for the speaking class. You did not go for the speaking exam. Band 1 means communication not possible. In other words, you did not even use English at all. You did not use any English word at all throughout, which is not possible for anybody in this class. Okay? Band 1, band 0, band 2, band 3. Even band 4 is not possible for anybody in this class. Okay? Now let's go to the top. Band 9. For you to get band 9 in IELTS speaking, what does it mean? It means that you must what? Speak fluently with only rare repetition or rare self-correction. No hesitation, or hesitation must be minimal. And they must have to do with what? Content, not about grammar. Okay? Hesitation probably has to do maybe the nature of the question they're asking you. And this kind of thing probably shows up in part 3, not in part 1. Okay, so for part 1 questions, you'll be able to express yourself freely, quickly, without wasting time. Then speak coherently with fully appropriate cohesive features. That's part of what? Fluency and coherence. Develops topics fully and appropriately. That's band 9. Hope you get the point now. So fluency means what? You develop your point, you develop your responses, you talk at length. Let me show you some other part 1 questions. Look at this number 3 here. Do you live in a house or a flat? If they ask you, do you live in a house or a flat? How would you respond? Yes. Well, I live in a house. I live in a I live in a story building. I'm trying to think of how to express myself now because I don't want to talk about my house. I want to use another kind of scenario. Okay, so all right, I live in a story building. It's a duplex and it has 5 rooms. I live there with my family and we've been living there for about 3 years now. We moved in 2022, just I think shortly after COVID. So what am I doing? I'm trying to describe my house. Do you live in a house or a flat? So I said I live in a house. It's a story building, a duplex. It has 5 rooms. I can talk about the color of the house, the color of the roof. I can talk about the fact that, okay, the house has a large garden. Okay, the house is surrounded, let me put it that way. The house is surrounded by a garden, or it has a garden beside it. There's a garden in the compound, and the house is fenced. The house and the garden are fenced. So what am I doing? I am trying to answer that question extensively. That thing says what? You should speak coherently using fully appropriate features. You should speak. Where is that? I think I wrote extensively somewhere. You must talk extensively. Yeah, speak extensively. Okay? So that's what? Fluency. That's the first criterion. The second criterion is what we call vocabulary. Vocabulary means what? You should use a range of words in expressing yourself. Use appropriate words. Use appropriate collocations. Use appropriate idioms to express yourself. Okay? Avoid using words out of context. That's part of what? Vocabulary. Let's look at the band score descriptor. Look at vocabulary here. Uses vocabulary with full flexibility and precision in all topics. For somebody to get band 9 in IELTS speaking, that person must be able to what? Use variety of English words flexibly and precisely. Okay? Accurately and flexibly. You should also use idioms naturally. We notice that they did not say use idiomatic language. They did not just say use idioms. No, you should use it naturally and accurately. In other words, your use of idioms should what? Should flow naturally. And getting it to flow naturally is something that develops with practice. That's why practicing your IELTS speaking with questions will help a lot. Okay? Will help a lot. So, number 3 criterion is what we call grammar, grammatical range and accuracy. So when it comes to grammar, you need to use variety of sentence structures, simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. You need to use variety of sentence structures to express yourself. That's what? Grammar. Okay, let's look at the band score descriptor and see what it says about grammar. Look at it here. Uses full range of structures naturally and appropriately. Can you see? Full range of structures. Different kinds of grammatical structures. Produces consistently accurate structures or sentences, apart from slips characteristics of native. So it's possible that you make some mistakes. That's what they are saying, slips. But there should not be too many. They should not be, in fact, not too many. There should not be many. I recommend that you don't make mistake at all. Okay? Minimize the mistakes. Okay? So your sentences should be what? Error-free. Whenever a sentence, whenever a question is about an event that happened in the past, make sure you use past tense correctly. Let me show you an example. Let's go to our marker book. Let's go to the marker book and let me show you an example. Look at an example here. Have you ever worked with old people? This question here, is it a past tense question or a present tense question or a future tense question? It's a past tense question. Have you ever worked with old people? Yes, I have. I have worked with, I've taught, remember I said earlier on that I teach, so let me just use that, let me just follow that line of thought. So if the examiner asks me this kind of question, so Tayo, have you ever worked with old people? Well, I have worked with many elderly people. So some times ago, I taught a woman in her late 60s. I taught her. Now, I'll tell the examiner, yes, I have worked with old people. I recently worked with a 65-year-old woman, and I would say working with old people is very challenging. Then, for example, that woman, I had to teach her, I do most of my classes online, by the way. So I had to teach her how to use Zoom. I had to teach her how to navigate the Zoom interface so that she'll be able to benefit from my online sessions with her. So I would say, commenting about teaching old people, working with old people, I would say is quite challenging, but it's fulfilling also. So that's my response to the question. I'll talk at length and I'll use the right tenses. I have worked, and then I talked about the fact that I did it sometimes in the past. So we must use the right tenses. Okay, now look at a question. There's a question here. This question says, do you often go to public places with your friends? This is a present simple tense question. In other words, is asking you to describe if something happens often. It's just like saying, do you often brush your teeth in the morning? Do you often brush your teeth in the morning? Yes, I do. I brush my teeth every morning. Do you understand? That's something that happens all the time, frequently. We use the present simple tense to describe situations like that happen all the time. So if somebody, goes to public places with their friends often, then they can say it. I say, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, every weekend, I go out with my friends to the cinema to watch movies. Sometimes I go out with 3 of them. Sometimes it's just me and I have one of my friends that stays next door to my house. So I just go to his place and then we go out together. That's how we unwind every weekend. So what have I done? I have answered that question using what? Present simple tense. Using the right tenses is a very critical aspect of what? Grammar. Okay? You must use the right tenses. You must use variety of sentence constructions. You must use, what's it called now? You must use articles correctly. Okay? The cinema, a cinema. Okay? The government, an umbrella, an airplane. We must use articles correctly. Okay? All these things will be used to what? To determine our score in terms of what? Grammar. And then the last criterion is pronunciation. Pronunciation basically talks about pronouncing your words clearly. Somebody says, do I have to use British accent during my IELTS speaking? No, you do not need to use British accent. Just use your regular African accent. Nobody will penalize you for using your African accent. What they want is that word, you need to pronounce your words clearly. Okay? Your plural words should be pronounced clearly and they should hear the S. Okay, you know plural words usually will have S. Okay, so you need to pronounce your plural words clearly. Past tense words, for example, danced. We danced throughout the party. Danced, ED. That ED should show out. Any past tense word that has ED at the end must be pronounced clearly. So your word should be pronounced clearly. So all these things will be used to determine your score. Fluency accounts for 25% of your score. Vocabulary accounts for 25%. Grammar accounts for 25%. And pronunciation accounts for what? 25%. Hope you get my point. So for part 1, like I said, you're going to have questions for part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 questions are basic, general questions about yourself. So I showed you some questions earlier on. What is your name? What do you do? Are you a student or do you work? What kind of work do you do? If you're a student, they will ask you what are you studying? If you're a student, they will ask you what are you studying? If you're working, they will ask you what kind of work do you do or where do you work? Do you like your job? Don't just say yes. Tell them yes and then tell them the reason why you like your job. And if you don't like your job, tell them no and tell them the reason why you don't like your job. Okay? Then you're going to have questions about where you live. Okay? Do you live in a house or a flat? Describe it. What is your favorite room in the house? What have you done to your room to make it look nice? Who do you live with? Which room does your family spend most of the time in? So these are questions that any of these questions can come out. Somebody says, would they ask me all these questions? No, they cannot ask you all the questions. You don't have that much time. The speaking session is just 15 minutes. So the examiner will just select some questions, not all the questions. They might just pick 2 from this list. and then move on to another one. Maybe pick 2 from here. You understand? And then go to the more advanced part 1 questions. So once we get to hometown question, once you leave hometown question, then we are moving into the more advanced part 1 questions. For example, look at this one here now. Are there any rules for students at your school? This is for somebody who is a student. If somebody is a worker, they will say, are there any rules for employees at your workplace? And then you will answer. Do you think workers, do you think you and your colleagues benefit more from the rules? So basic questions. If you say yes, if you get any yes or no question during IELTS speaking, don't just say yes. Don't just say no. Make sure you back your answer up with appropriate reasons, with relevant words, explanations. Okay, look at this one. Have you ever talked with someone you don't know in public places? Do you wear headphones in public places? Yes, I do. I like listening to music. I enjoy listening to music a lot. So whenever I'm in a public place, if I am not with somebody that I know, I just put on my headphones and I listen to music, listen to good music, and get myself relaxed while waiting for something or somebody. So I wear headphones a lot in public places. So that's my response to the question. You will notice that in this book, they are putting answers there. Those are the answers that the producers, the publishers of this book have written to serve as a guide for you. Okay, so you can also use those answers to generate ideas, for your IELTS speaking responses. The answers here in this book will help you in generating ideas. They will also help you in preparing for your what? For your exam. I hope you guys are getting my point. So part 1 questions are basic, straightforward questions about things that you will be familiar with, about things that you can what? That you can undo. All right? So I'm going to share this book with you guys so that you can download it and begin to practice with it. Somebody says, how do we practice? There are 2 major ways to practice. Number 1 is to what? Is to go through these questions and record yourself in a voice note. Record it in a voice note and listen to it. You can send it to maybe a colleague that you have that is also preparing for IELTS. You can send it to your study partner. If you have a study partner, send it to the person, and then the person will listen to it and then give some comments or make some corrections. You understand? That's one way to practice. Another way to practice is to do real practice with somebody who's also preparing for IELTS or somebody who has done IELTS before. Okay? Or somebody who's an IELTS tutor like me. Now you can do practice with me. You understand now? So during some of our classes, we're going to be having speaking sessions where we're going to be doing practice with anybody who is interested. Just like we're going to do today, if I see anybody who is interested. So if you're interested in doing some speaking practice, you can just type your name in the Zoom chat. I'm going to unmute you and then we can do some practice with you. So you practice with somebody who has done IELTS before, and then you ask them questions. Sorry, they will ask you questions and then you will answer. They will ask you questions, you will answer, and then they will give feedback. They will use this marker book to ask you questions. You understand? So that will help to improve your speaking skills. It will help to develop your confidence. That's it. That's how you improve your what? Improve your IELTS speaking. So you're going to see lots of different types of questions when it comes to what? IELTS speaking. So let's take 1 or 2 individuals. Let me do practices with 1 or 2 people before we round up. Let me see who is interested. Okay, Christiana. Let's unmute Christiana. Let's do speaking practice with Christiana. Christiana, you can unmute yourself. Who else is there? Let me see. So I'm going to take Christiana. After Christiana, I'm going to take Vicky. So Vicky, get ready. Christiana, are you there? I can't hear you, Christiana.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, you're welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm fine. How about you?
All right, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. All right. So, Christina, let's do our speaking practice. Let's do part one. Let's do some part one questions. Are you ready?
Yes, we'll see.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's see how it goes.
So, you're welcome to this interview session. My name is Tayo. What is your name?
I'm Christiana.
Christiana. So, Christiana, where are you from?
Okay, I'm from Ghana,
Ghana.
and then I'm from Ghana, and then I live within the Greater Accra region,
Within
a
the great.
suburb of
Okay.
a suburb of Tantra, but I specifically live at Racecourse.
Okay. Race course. Did you say race course?
Racecourse.
Okay, race course. All right. So, what do you do? Are you a student or do you work?
Currently, I'm a nurse,
Nurse.
and
Okay.
I work in. I'm a nurse, and I work in Ridge Hospital. Ridge is a regional hospital. It has it's a 80 bed capacity. And then I've been working for the past 2 years. I'm working as a medical surgical nurse.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then we take care of patients. We prepare patients for theater, and then we take care of them post theater too as well.
Wow. So how would you describe nursing? How are you finding your work as a nurse? Do you enjoy being a nurse?
Well, I can say I enjoy being a nurse because I've always loved taking care of people, and the nursing is all about taking care of people when they are their lowest. So I'm enjoying my career as a nurse by taking care of people.
All right. Okay, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about library. Have you ever used the library?
I've used a library before,
Okay.
way back when I was in school. I go there to study. I read both fiction and non-fiction books.
Okay. How about presently? Do you go to library often nowadays?
Nowadays, I hardly use the library, but I normally read online due
Okay.
to work ups and downs. I normally read online to get more vocabs and all that. So I can say now I don't normally go to the library nowadays.
Okay. So you prefer to read online is it using your phone or your laptop, or what do you use?
I normally use my phone
Okay.
at my leisure time, maybe at work. When I'm less busy, I go online to read new updates and the new stories.
Oh. So do you think children should be encouraged to go to the library to read, or should they read at home? Which one is better for children?
In my opinion, children can go to the now children can go to the library to read to enhance their is the English show. Excuse me. Children can be advised to go to the library to learn more and then enhance their vocabulary. I think I'm falling short here.
Okay.
This aspect has to be more detailed, but I think I'm falling short here.
Okay. So talking about library, let me just add one or 2 points to that. So if I want to
Okay.
say that children should be encouraged to go to the library, you want to come up with 2 or 3 reasons why going to the library
Okay.
is better than reading at home. Because what you said, they can also do it at home, right? So you want to give us
Yeah.
2 or 3 reasons to back up the idea of going to the library. So I would say that, okay, well, children can read at home. They can also read in the library, but I think it's better for them to go to the library. Firstly, going to the library will give them the opportunity to um, pick up so many different books. They will see books on science, books on geography, books on history, books on different subjects. A typical library will have lots of collections, and children cannot have access to such things if they stay at home and read. So going to the library will benefit them because they will have access to all the diverse collections available in the library. Secondly, going to the library will
Okay.
help them cultivate the habit of research. Many libraries organize classes or sessions where they teach young people how to conduct research, how to search for information, check out old books, search for information, and then even do research online. So children can benefit from such sessions if they go to the library. So I would say that going to the library is actually more beneficial than staying at home to read. So you see the way I've developed my answer, my response. I explained why it's better and I gave practical, real illustrations. You understand my point? Christian, are you still with me? Okay, seems Christiana has gone off.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, all right. So let me do one more question and then I'm going to move to another person. So, Christiana, how do you do your shopping? Do you shop online or do you go to physical stores to buy whatever you need? How do you do your shopping?
I I go to the shop myself. I don't do online shopping because sometimes you can't trust the vendors online. So I personally go to the shop to shop on weekends when I'm off duty. And then when I go, I buy all the groceries that are needed for at least a month.
So let's
So
make a
I could
correction.
do
Hold on, let's make a correction here. I personally go to the shop to shop. I personally go to the shop to shop. Well, yeah, correct yourself. Let me see. Can you correct yourself though?
okay. Okay, I personally go to the shop to buy my groceries.
All right, that's better. Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, I personally go to the shop to buy my groceries, and then I do that every weekend when I'm off duty.
Yeah.
And then normally when I go, I buy them in bulk to last for at least a month. So
Oh,
when I go to the shop, I get all the stuff. I get some for the baby, I get some for food, I get some provisions.
okay. So when you go for shopping, do you usually make a list or you just buy whatever comes to mind?
When I go for shopping, I make a list.
Oh, well, okay. So
I
you
make a list of the items. Please continue for me.
Christy so I should continue. Okay, so what's it called now? Somebody asked me, I said, do you make a list when you go for shopping? Absolutely, I need to make a list because if I don't make a list, I'll end up forgetting very important items that I need to buy. In fact, I don't make the list on the day of the shopping. I start making my list from, let's say, maybe Monday. So if I'm going for, if I'm going, if I intend to go to buy stuffs on Saturday, I'll start preparing my mind and my list from Monday. I'll start writing down things to buy so that I'll know that everything that needs to be covered is covered. And when I get to the market, I use my list. I do my best to ensure that I don't buy anything outside my list. I attend to the things on my list first before thinking of any other thing. Did I try, Christiana?
You did
So,
so well. It's
so,
explanatory.
so you give details, okay? You explain, you look at it from the angle of, okay, why? So usually we look at it from the angle of why, when,